Soweto, proposed dormitory township, providing accommodation for temporary black labour allowed in from the Bantustans according to the needs of the City of Gold. Created in the shadow of Johannesburg's consciousness, today a vibrant community of some 2 million people.
Bitter be the food of an angry land, when bitter be the seed it sowed, and bitter be the earth that be watered by the tears of a nation's woe.
To provide housing for Bantu workers at a reasonable cost is an undertaking of vast magnitude, but it pays dividends in the form of the orderly growth and development of our cities and towns. Order out of chaos. In the heart of Johannesburg, places like Sophiatown, Martindale, New Clare and Pageview, which for years had been a threat to the public health and safety, were tackled with vigor and energy. It was alleged by some Europeans that the Bantu would refuse to move. In fact, such an idea never existed in the minds of the Bantu who were living in these shanties.
When my dreams came true, until they broken down my town.
Since we left our beloved Sophiatown, we had no choice, to go and stay at Soweto. And there was no knocking like you knock like a gentleman, it was just kicking the doors. Hey, Magelo, you fucking carfus, Magelo, you didn't know so. And you complaining and but, and just pathetic.
It seems strange that a few Europeans could actually have pleaded for the retention of these conditions. Order out of chaos. Lorries transport the rejoicing Bantu whose hearts are filled with happy expectation. They're on their way to a new residential quarter, a new home, Meadowlands. They hurry to unload and move in. This is great fun, and everybody lends a hand.
By 1960, some 24,000 households had been forcibly removed from so-called black spots. And in 1963, the grey expanse of faceless houses, known as southwestern townships, was officially dubbed Soweto. Through resilience, the vibrance of Sophiatown lived on in the creative expression of music, literature, the arts, and community solidarity.
I know Soweto is a very special place because, I guess, of what it stands for in as far as the whole idea of the resilience of a people means. But to me, initially, it is just home. I grew up there, I played in the streets there, I walked to school there. I think about my home. I think about the street I grew up in, Orlando West, in Orlando West, Mamburu Street. And I think about the sense of community, the sense that if my parents were not there, I could always go to the neighbor's house and have my dinner there, The sense of family that was there. You could come out of school, for instance, go home, go to your neighbor's house, get your key to your parents' home, get inside there, do whatever you have to do, change, clean up the house, do the cooking if you're of that age, go out into the street and play. Everybody looked out for everybody else, and just being allowed to be a child. I think that's the one thing that I feel particularly lucky about. We were just children. We were allowed to be children. It was demanded of us, in fact, to be children. But we know that 76 changed all of that for a lot of children, so.
After the shooting of Hector Peterson, Soweto was never the same again. Had it not been for those children, those men who were sitting on Robben Island, would never have come out. We are free today because of those children. I saw was a poster, Star newspaper saying, students to march tomorrow. I didn't think much of it, I just said, well, this is some news. But it has to be covered.
He was a very good sleeper and he didn't sleep the whole night. Up and down, and he was agitated. And I asked him what was wrong. And he said, nothing really. It's nothing to be concerned about. And I said, no, what's going on? And he said, I think there's going to be big trouble.
Days prior to the tragic 16th of June, we knew that there was trouble coming. I was informed by the leaders. I spoke to the police. I warned them that there would be trouble. But on the morning of the 16th of June, it all broke.
Freely rose the winter sun on the 16th day of June, and freely ran the children's blood by the rising of the moon.
Went into Soweto. That's when I met the first group that was marching from Naledi High School. When I tried to take my third picture, I saw that they didn't like it because I could just tell with the way their hands were going. Say, go away, go away. I took 2 pictures. I was running backwards, running backwards.
Behind him were the police, and he was in between and taking pictures of the kids, and the kids wanted to attack him. They obviously were concerned at the fact that their pictures would be recorded and therefore could be used in evidence against them.
I stopped and I said to them, a struggle without documentation is no struggle. Whether you win or lose, it's no struggle. Someone from the back said, oh yes, I know him. So I said to them, I plead with you again that you let everybody in, not just me, black and white, yellow, green, blue, let everybody in, let them record this. They let us in.
The plan for the day was a simple one in that we planned to organize ourselves and march towards the school that had been longest on boycott, that is Orlando West Junior Secondary School. We were not planning trouble. We're just planning to go and march, sing songs, raise our placards, and thereafter go back, to our respective homes. We were facing the police up on the hill. One of the student columns that had arrived much later than the rest, they approached from behind the police column, and the police panicked. There was a huge column of students approaching from behind them. So they then had to force their way through us. And as they were driving out in panic, they were shooting their way through the crowd. And that's how Hector Peterson was then shot.
Wild were the bullets that burned away from the barrel of oppression's guns, and wild grow the flowers on the unmarked graves that hold a nation's daughters and sons.
Hector Peterson was not the first child killed on that fateful day. The first bullet that killed took the life of 17-year-old Hastings Ndlovu, witnessed but not captured by camera. The second fatality, 13-year-old Hector Peterson, witnessed by world newspaper photographer Sam Nzima. The iconic photograph, Hector's lifeless body in the arms of Mayibuso, alongside grief-stricken sister Antoinette, emblazoned apartheid brutality indelibly on the consciousness of the world.
We made contact with the Prime Minister and reported to him, asked him whether he knew what was happening. He said yes. And we said, well, will you do something to stop it? He said no. He said, it's your doing anyway. This is what you people have wanted. You can live with it now. So while we were just staggered at the absurdity and the hubris, and we had to do things. And I think the most important thing John did that day was to get the trains running between Johannesburg and Soweto, because they'd been stopped the moment the uprising took place and the shootings took place. And what you had now was parents, Soweto parents, working in the city, hearing rumors that their children were being shot and unable to get back to Soweto.
When 76 came, I went in there like a wounded tiger. I had not been working as a newspaper person for 7 years because I was detained, kept in solitary confinement for 586 days, and I was banned for 5 years. So when I came back, I was hungry.
By mid-morning, the mood had changed, evolving from innocent protest to one of provoked outrage, and students went on the rampage. Dr. Melville Edelstein was a social worker who for some 18 years had been working closely with the community of Soweto. On the morning of June 16th, Dr. Edelstein was hosting the official opening of a branch of his sheltered workshop program designed to provide employment for the disabled in Orlando East, Soweto. When news of the protest reached the project, the ceremony was brought to a hurried end as dignitaries and workers were ferried out of the township.
They were all warned to leave, and then he suddenly thought he had a very good friend, Perit Jacques, who was in juvenile employment, and he began to panic. He thought, I wonder if she knows she's got to get out. And he drove back to see where she was, and that's when it all happened.
For Melville, it was a fatal decision.
I felt partly responsible, although I didn't know that he was coming to my office. But still, that was where he was killed.
A few hours later, news photographer Peter Magubane came across the riot police standing over the disfigured remains of Dr. Edelstein's body, a tragic consequence of student outrage. On top of his body lay a crude sign with the words, "Beware, Afrikaans is the most dangerous drug for our future."
They would not have killed him if they knew who he was. No, not at all. He was part of the community.
And then the phone rang, and I said to Janet, answer the phone.
It was a reporter from the Daily Mail. And they asked, where's your mom? Can we speak to her?
And she said, I'm just phoning about Dr. Edelstein. So I said, well, what about him? She said she could hear that I knew nothing at that stage. She said, no, he's been hurt. And then she put the phone down. And the next thing, these two men in black suits, I'll never forget this. And I think it was Mani Mulder. And I can't remember which politician the next one was. And I opened the door and I just looked at them and I knew. And I said, he's dead, isn't he? And they said yes.
And it became absolutely clear that massive funding was going to be needed. First of all, simply to try and deal with the immediate crisis of first scores and then hundreds of young people being shot dead and their bodies being distributed around mortuaries all over the city and even further afield, with rumors that they were being buried in the backyards of police stations and things like that.
I proceeded overseas and raised large sums of money. We buried the people. We provided legal defense for those who were being arrested. The operation was nationwide. We looked at every conceivable and possible way of helping everybody. And I went to meetings at night to discover that poor, bewildered people had been put across the borders with AK-47s and did not know what to do with them. And so I ran missions to take these people back across the border. At some stages, we had as many as 53 lawyers briefed all over the country, running cases for us.
Whilst I'm standing near the beer hall, there were two women saying, "Power, power." A bullet oozed past my ear and went through this woman's stomach. As one man was passing with his car. They hit him stone dead. I saw a guy who was holding a brick on his right hand and holding a rubbish bin lid. Hit. He was stone dead. Those images were horrific.
Soweto is the conscience of South Africa. It symbolizes the long struggle for liberation and the contributions of the youth of this country. It was, in fact, the 1976 uprising which turned the history of this country into where we are today. There were ordinary student demonstrations against the use of Afrikaans as a language medium in their curriculum. We never anticipated that it would turn out to be what it was. My memory of Soweto always hinges around the blood of our children, the sacrifices they made, and that they lost their childhood then.
What I can say is that my son died for the nation. Yes, I'm proud because it happens. I cannot, what can I say? But I feel all right because it's a symbol to the other generation coming. Then they'll know what happened on 1976.
There isn't anything I would ever forget about that day. When we got off at Perfect Station, there was a kiosk there where they used to sell newspapers. And there was my son carrying this boy. We thought it was my other son because he was the same age as my other little boy. Because there were no names then. Yeah, it was terrible. The boy son left the country in August of 1976 because the police were after him, you know. They claimed that he posed for the picture that was taken by Sam. The problem is when they were denying that they were killing the children, they couldn't deny the picture. And I heard from him up to 1978 in June that he was in Nigeria at school there. And he complained of ill health. They said things didn't quite go well with his health. That was the last letter I received from him. That was June 1978. I've never heard from him or about him ever since.
There isn't a single picture that I would think it is iconic. They are all iconic. They tell the story. Tell the story to other people who were not born then. What 76 looked like, what it was like to be a student in 1976. And that the children of today must embrace the democracy that was brought by the blood that flowed of those children of 1976.
Freely rose the winter sun on the 16th day of June, and freely ran the children's blood by the rising of the moon.
Official figures released by the government-appointed Salir Commission put the overall death toll at 575. Independent estimates between 800 to 1,000. Hundreds more were either wounded or went into exile. In 1983, the state followed up with a vengeance, targeting the South African Council of Churches and past General Secretary John Rees.
P.W. Botha had set up the Elof Commission of Inquiry, a tribunal to put the SACC on trial, and P.W. hoped to put us out of business.
As children fought security forces on the streets, in contrast, John Rees stood at the center of a hidden struggle. Using his trusted integrity, John raised millions of rand, which he silently channeled to the victims and their families. Secrecy was paramount. When targeted, arrested, and put on trial by the Apartheid regime for not accounting for funds raised from the international church community, only two things could unequivocally have saved him. First, a readiness on the part of those victims he had helped to come forward and testify, something they could not do for fear of punishment at the hands of the regime. And second, a willingness on John's part to reveal from who and to whom he had received and disbursed the money, something he could have easily done, but unequivocally refused to consider.
I found that offensive because I had told the people when I had given them the money that I would give them my word that I would never, and I underline the word never, tell.
Refusing to give evidence, John Rees was tried, found guilty, and sentenced to 10 years imprisonment, suspended for 5 years, and a fine of 30,000 rand, or 6 years imprisonment.
He had made a vow of silence. He would never expose the people he had helped. And so he would rather go to jail than do that.
A silent witness showing immense moral courage, diagnosed with leukemia, John Rees passed away on the 15th of October, 1994, at age 57. His choice? To suffer the consequences rather than betray those he had set out to save. As a 76 student leader, Murphy Morobe was sentenced to 7 years, 4 suspended, on Robben Island. In no way implicated in the killing of Dr. Melville Edelstein, with the advent of the TRC, Murphy welcomed the opportunity to meet with the family.
During the time of the Truth Commission, I had the privilege of getting to meet the family. And for me, I would say it's one of those cathartic moments that you go through. So when I met Janet in particular, there was a sadness to the meeting on the one hand.
It was good to meet with them. And I've met Murphy more than once, and when I see him now, I often bump into him. I am very happy to talk with him, and we seem to have a great rapport with one another.
And for Janet to be able to come across and open herself up, to my embrace at the time, it was absolutely a fulfilling experience, because it basically said that as we engage with being adults and going into the future, we're both going to be bringing up children who we had to share with the experiences that this country has gone through. I know that it could never bring back the father, but it is about a greater ideal. It's about cherishing the fact that it is possible, to go beyond the initial pain and still craft a future that is so much more hopeful for our own children going forward.
Bitter be the fruit of an angry land, when bitter be the seed it sow, and bitter be the earth that be watered by the tears of a nation's woe.